The land down under has never been easier to reach. United Airlines has more flights between the U.S. and Australia than any other U.S. airline, so you can fly nonstop to destinations like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Explore dazzling cities, savor the very best of Aussie cuisine, and get up close and personal with the wildlife. Who doesn't want to hold a koala? Go to united.com/Australia to book your adventure.
When it comes to barbecue, Nashville does Tennessee-style pork in a tomato-based sauce, while Austin is famous for a dry-rub, slow-cooked beef brisket. But Las Vegas has, is there even good barbecue here? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm talking to Christie Vanover, pitmaster and founder of Girls Can Grill. She's going to give us the deets on the Vegas barbecue scene and where to get the best slow-smoked meat in the Valley. It's Thursday, September 5th. I'm Sarah Lohman, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Christie, you're a pitmaster. What did it take to earn that title?
I am. So it took me a long time to actually earn the title because I think that being a pitmaster is similar to being a chef. Like being a chef is technically just somebody who gets paid to cook food. But being a chef, really, you have to earn that. There's so much more to it.
Did you have to take a test to become an official pitmaster, or is it more about the honor being bestowed upon you after years of work?
Yes, you do not have to take a test, and nobody really gives you the name. It's kind of a name that you decide for yourself. Have you earned the cred and ability to be able to kind of give yourself that name. So anybody can call themselves a pitmaster, but you better have the chops to prove it when the time comes.
You better have mastered a pit before you start walking around calling yourself a pitmaster.
Yeah.
There's moving up the whole hierarchy. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Like there's the sous chef, there's the line cook, there's the whole gamut. And with being a pitmaster, it's the same. Like lots of people cook a barbecue in their backyards. They grill in their backyards. But I think to be a pitmaster, it's to be able to go out in the middle of the woods and somebody give you a mystery ingredient and some sort of fuel source, any grill, and to just be able to create amazing barbecue. I've got over 30 grills in my backyard right now. So yeah, I think I passed the test a little while ago.
30 different types of grills.
I do. I've cooked on dozens. A lot of grill companies will send me their grills to test out. And once I test them, I give them my feedback. Sometimes it's beta testing before it's even released. And then sometimes it's, once it's out there on the market and I give them my feedback.
So you just have a backyard museum of grill technology.
Basically like the Neon Museum, but with grills.
Oh, wow. Okay. You know what? And I think we actually need a definition of barbecue because is barbecue grilling? Is grilling barbecue?
That's a fair question. So it definitely the word gets tossed around. Technically, barbecue is like cooking over live fire, but there is a difference between grilling, which is that direct high heat, and barbecue, which is usually slow and low over indirect heat, where you've got your heat source, but that heat is coming from usually wood or charcoal, and then it's flavoring the meat a little bit more slowly as it renders and cooks down.
Do you want to jump into a little bit of that history? Can you tell me a little bit of the history of barbecue?
Yeah. So, the history of barbecue really, it is different in every different country. Like, Chinese has its background. Japan, when you think of the Kamado style cookers, which are the ceramic based cookers where they would put the meat in that, it holds the heat so well. But then, if you go down to the Caribbean, it's a lot more of the open fire. Argentina, that's the asado style that I was talking about, where it's live fire over a cross or they're hanging their meat. And then in America, of course, we have our own traditions. Most of the traditions that we have here have really evolved from those who have immigrated to America. And we've taken on those customs and now over time kind of merged them and made them our own.
Oh, I love that. It's such a perfect example. I often bring up in my work as a food historian, Dr. Jessica Harris, has this idea of the braid, which is that American cuisine is built from the foodways of indigenous people, of Black Africans, of colonial Europeans, and I also think immigration too. And I think you can really see that in barbecue. Barbecue specifically is considered a native cooking style, that it comes from the word barbacoa, which was used by the Taino people who were in the Caribbean and the Gulf Coast. You're not at Christie. I'm glad that you're with me. You're like, yes, okay, good.
Yeah.
Who were doing these large animal, either like you mentioned, like on a cross or a pit roast. And then that was sort of adapted really into like big Southern plantation farm life, where it was often enslaved Black men who were the pitmasters and doing these huge animal roasts. There's also this legacy of Black tradition within some of the most famous barbecue stops, which are in the American South, because it was this highly skilled cooking position that was passed through Black families, not white ones. The white, enslavers didn't know how to do it, that then was used to be able to make a living, make an income. But of course, now we're talking through maybe the early 20th century, and now it seems like so many people have gotten involved and so many different traditions have become a part of American barbecue.
Yeah, I mean, really with the invention of the backyard grill, with Weber mixed with Kingsford, coming up with ways to use the leftover parts that they were using at Ford for their manufacturing and taking that charcoal and combining it with Weber and making it something that people could do in their backyards. That, I think, was a true evolution from exactly the history that you described. One of the things that I think is really fascinating is when I look at historical magazines and historical articles, there were a lot of women in barbecue back in the beginning because women were in the kitchen. So when the grills were coming out, the initial concept was, okay, continue your role in the kitchen and actually let's go do it outside. But then it just evolved, marketing evolved. And then in the ads, you start to see now more men actually doing the grilling. And it's just continued like that for decades.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is one of the things that drives me crazy about barbecue and grilling culture in the modern era. Christie, why do you think so many men are involved in this profession as opposed to women?
So I think a lot of it has to do with the advertising and marketing. It was a space that was created for men once the marketing and advertising changed. And so it's just a space that they were like, hey, that's what I'm supposed to do. Then the fathers learned it, passed it on to their sons, et cetera, et cetera. That is one of the reasons that I actually started Girls Can Grill, is because it's something that's really cool and fun to do, but there wasn't marketing and advertising to show that it's a space that women are welcome into as well. So I started Girls Can Grill, and now there's been a big evolution, not just because of me, but I think social media, I think brands have definitely adapted, and they are now marketing more to women, which is awesome. I think there's been an evolution in the grills. With the pellet grill is a lot easier than cooking over an open fire or, even messing with charcoal or propane. So I think there's been an evolution in a lot of areas, and I do see that shift. But I will also say I definitely had the dudes come up to me and be like, oh, let me help you with that, and try to grab the tongs, and I just snap them back at them. But there's also men in the space that I've learned as a teacher of barbecue who actually feel like it's supposed to be their role, and they're nervous to ask questions about it. Like they're supposed to be born with this skill, but they're like, I'm supposed to be macho, but I don't really know how to barbecue. What am I supposed to do? And I love that about Girls Can Grill, is that I'm friends with so many guys who actually come to me for advice now. And it's just awesome to see that.
Listen, I will never forget in college, I was hosting a cookout for friends in my new apartment, and a male friend was like, hey, can I help you? And I was like, sure. Why don't you get the grill going? And so he sprays it down with lighter fluid, lights it, and then I turn around and watch him start to put burgers on the grill. And I was like, no. You gotta wait. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about Girls Can Grill and what it is?
Sure. Yeah. So I started it in 2015. I had another food website where I created recipes based on my travels around the world, because my husband was in the Army and we lived all over the world, 22 countries, 50 states now. I haven't lived in all those places, but I've been to all those places. And so I was sharing those recipes from those experiences. And then I just started doing more things on the grill. I wanted to experiment and see if I could cook the things that I was cooking inside, outside. And then I just realized that my website didn't really have a niche to it. So I wanted to try out grilling. I introduced myself to some of the big female pitmasters that were already in the space, and just kind of went from there, not really knowing what to expect. And then I entered competition barbecue a couple years later. And now it's one of the top barbecue websites in the country. I've been on Food Network's Barbecue Brawl. I was just featured in Men's Journal today. Like it's been great to see the evolution.
Hi, this is David, the CEO of CityCast. Do you ever find yourself holding back on travel because you're afraid of a language gap? Well, mind the gap no longer, as long as you have Babbel. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app. Its 10 minutes lessons are quick and handcrafted to get you talking your new language in 3 weeks. So I was reminded in the Olympics how much I love French. I had spoken French as a kid, but it has deteriorated to nothing. But I thought I would love to take a trip back to France with my girlfriend, but I'm embarrassed because my French is at zero. And I thought, why don't I get on Babbel and revive my French? And it's been a joy for the past few weeks. I'd forgotten everything. I'd forgotten plurals. I'd forgotten articles, vocabulary. Mostly I'd just forgotten how to speak and how to listen. And Babbel has me back on track with lots of speaking and lots of listening, because that's how you get better at a language. So I've been working on time, for example. And there's this way in French where when you say 2:45, you don't say 2:45, you say 3 o'clock minus 15. So, je rentre à 3h moins le quart. I'm coming back at 2:45. Anyway, it's so much fun to speak. And don't take my word for it. There's studies from Yale, from Michigan State University that prove that Babbel works. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So you're also, speaking of competitive barbecue, you are also a judge. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're looking for? What makes really good barbecue when you're judging?
Yeah, so there's definitely rules when it comes to competition barbecue compared to like if I was just going to eat at a restaurant and what I'm looking for. With competition barbecue, it's pretty strict. There are 4 categories. It's chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket, and the pork is pulled pork.
Oh, chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket. I really stopped them chicken ribs. Is this a thing we're doing now?
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, just a little bit of meat.
A delicacy?
Yeah, right.
Chicken, ribs, pork, brisket. Okay, I'm with you.
Yes. Yes. So the meat gets turned in a clamshell box, just a styrofoam box, and there's 6 pieces in there for 6 judges. And you judge it on appearance, and then you taste it and you judge it on taste. Like it can be sauced, but that shouldn't overpower the meat. You also judge it on tenderness, which is one of the most important things. Is it tender but not too tender? You don't want it mushy, but you don't want there to be a tug to it. So those are overall the things that we're looking for. The judging goes all the way up to a score of a 9. So a 9 is a perfect score. And I will say with Kansas City Barbecue right now, and I've actually done a whole podcast on this on my Barbecue Tips podcast, the flavor profiles have been very similar. A lot of people are doing Kansas City style flavor profiles, the really sweet red sauce. And I'm anxious for there to be a shift. I want there to be more diversity.
Tangy South Carolina sauce,
Yes.
right? Dry rubbed Texas brisket. Come on, everybody.
Yeah, I did Asian ribs at a competition recently, and they didn't do too bad. One judge knocked me down because I know they're thinking this isn't normal to barbecue, but I just think there needs, like we talked about earlier, there is so much cultural influence that birthed barbecue that we need to continue to keep that and not just totally Americanize things on the competition circuit.
Yeah, it doesn't all have to be Kansas City, everybody. Take note. Are there different things, when you're going to a restaurant, are there things in competition that are specific to competition versus what you think is a great barbecue restaurant experience?
100%, especially when it comes to ribs. So with ribs, with pork ribs, at a competition, you want it to have some integrity and texture to the bite. When you bite it, the meat should stay on the bone except for the area that you bit. It should actually kind of leave that indentation. But if you go to a restaurant, you want it to fall off the bone. You just want that rib meat to be really nice and soft. But if you turn that in at a competition, you would not score well. And vice versa, if you created ribs like competition ribs at a restaurant, I have friends who own restaurants who've done that, the customers don't like them. So there's definitely a little bit of a nuance there.
Are there some other examples of that?
I would say, yeah, chicken thighs. When we do chicken thighs, we take the skins off, we scrape the skins to remove a lot of the excess fat, and then we put the skins back on and kind of shape them all into these little perfect little pillows. At a barbecue restaurant, you're not going to go through all of that extra effort. Also on the circuit with brisket, we're usually cooking Wagyu brisket or Australian A9 brisket, which is really highly marbled and rich. And
expensive.
Yeah, you wouldn't meet your numbers at a restaurant if that's what you were serving. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of competition cooks have transitioned to Wagyu is not only because it tastes wonderful, but we're now also a lot of times cooking hot and fast. So we're using techniques of indirect cooking, but we're actually cooking at temperatures of 275 to 350 degrees. And the reason for that is it allows us to cook the meat a lot faster. So I can cook a brisket in 5 hours at a barbecue competition, whereas at home, I might do it slow and low for 12 hours. But at a competition, you want to get some sleep and you don't want to be there all the time. So we've adapted our methods for competition barbecue, and cooking a Wagyu definitely helps with that flavor profile where we're cooking it hotter.
Okay, let's talk Vegas.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even though I would say both Vegas, California were known as like ranching places, not as much as Texas, but I have yet to have good barbecue west of Texas. And I would even say north of the Mason-Dixon. I'll throw Kentucky in there, but certainly there's no good barbecue in Ohio or New York, the other two states that I've lived in.
Okay.
So what do we got going on here in Vegas as our barbecue scene?
We definitely have a variety. So, of course, there's the chain restaurants. We've got the Dickies, the Famous Dave's, the Lucille's. You've got those places. They're pretty consistent across the country where all their locations are. And then we have like the strip barbecue. Some of the places on the strip where you're going to find barbecue. There's Virgil's, for instance, which is started in New York City, and they have one out at the Link. There's Mabel's, which is Michael Simon's restaurant, which was in Cleveland, Ohio, where he started it.
Yeah, I'm from Cleveland. Cleveland's own.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Michael Simon. I did just trash you 2 sentences ago.
It's okay. I'm sure he'll be all right with it. He understands.
He's going to do fine. He's doing just fine, despite my opinions. I do love him, and I love what he's done for the pierogi, another hometown food. But like, I found that like Northern barbecue just doesn't compare. But yeah, he's got his place over at the Palms now.
Yeah. And he gave me a tour of the restaurant a couple years ago, and we talked about his barbecue profiles there. And he was explaining to me that he brought his Cleveland barbecue, which has a lot of Polish and Eastern European influences to it. He brought that to Vegas, to the Strip, and the customers were like, what is this? I want barbecue. They want American barbecue. So he had to shift his menu and throw some Kansas City style, Texas style, et cetera. So he shifted the menu over there at the Palms a bit to accommodate for that. Going back to Vegas barbecue in general, then you have there's so many like strip malls that just have a random barbecue place in them. And I wish them all the best. I haven't been to all of them. There's just no way. Unfortunately, I see some that last a little while and close down, and some that have been there a little bit longer. But there are some barbecue places that stand out to me. And what I do love about Vegas that I think makes Vegas different is that we're not just American barbecue. So if we're looking for American barbecue, we have a few restaurants. I'll touch on those first, and then I do want to talk about some of the more international ones. One of my favorite barbecue restaurants in Vegas, or Henderson, actually, is Jesse Ray's Barbecue. That's down on Boulder Highway. What I love about his barbecue is I feel like he puts Vegas into it. So he has a dish called the Fortress, which is a circular rib rack that he smokes, and then he fills it with brisket, pulled pork, tater tots, macaroni and cheese. So it's like the indulgence of Vegas. When you come here and you're like, I'm ready to splurge, that's just what he creates. That's what he delivers. And so I love his just adventure with his barbecue, and it all tastes really good to me. Then there's Soul Belly Barbecue, which is more in the Arts District area. And Bruce does an awesome job there because he also creates a little bit different flavor profiles because he's more of a chef than he was a pitmaster, and he's found a way to really merge those two fields. So he has like hatch chili hot links, or he'll have like a maple bourbon glaze with his pork belly, and he has watermelon salad, just really unique different things in his restaurant. So I think he's found a way to kind of incorporate that kind of celebrity chef status and just the high-end chef status with the comfort of barbecue. And then if we want to go way back, there's John Mole's Meats Roadkill Grill. His place in Las Vegas has been around since 1947.
Wow. I've not even heard of this place. I'm ashamed.
Oh my gosh. It's actually been recognized by the city of Las Vegas as a historic site.
Oh, wow. Okay. I gotta get on this. I mean, hopefully it's not going anywhere. It's been there since 47, but I am way late to this.
So it's cool because it's a butcher, it's a meat processor. So if you go out and you hunt, you can also bring your meat there and get processed. But then he also has a barbecue spot called Roadkill Grill, and it's got a lot of soul food to it. In addition to the brisket and ribs and stuff, he's got collard greens and he's got yams, sweet potatoes and stuff. And you just sit outside. It's weird because it's like the whole city has built up around it, and he's been there so long that it was like he has this huge property in the middle of like this neighborhood, but you just go there and you sit outside on the picnic tables, and yeah, that's good food and just a fun environment for sure.
All right, so let's get to these blended immigrant style. I'm imagining there's going to be Korean barbecue on here, maybe Chinese barbecue, traditional barbacoa. Like, what you got for me?
Yeah, so for sure, Korean barbecue. And when you think of Korean, when you use the word barbecue and Korean barbecue, we are kind of going back to grilling. So there's so many different Korean barbecue restaurants, Mr. Kim's, a few others where you go in and you sit and the grill's at your own table. It's a propane grill. They serve you the raw meat, and then you're cooking it on this grill. And it's really cool because the brisket they bring you is shaved so paper thin that you're actually grilling it. And you can add your sauces if you want to, soy sauce or whatever else. But it's totally different than American barbecue, which is that big meat that you're cooking for 12 hours.
Would you say Mr. Kim's is your go-to?
I would say so. Yeah. There's one that's over by my house, and then there's one that's over by some other family's house. And we just love going there. Good prices, and everything always turns out really good.
All right. So what other places and communities?
So I think Filipino barbecue, the Filipino community here in Las Vegas is huge. Oming's is a good popular place. And again, the style is not necessarily slow and low cooking, but it comes down to how they grill it and then the sauces that they use. So in Filipino barbecue, instead of regular ketchup, tomato ketchup, they're using banana ketchup. Because during World War II, they didn't have the availability of getting tomatoes in the Philippines. So instead, there was a female chef there who created a style of ketchup using bananas, using ripe bananas, and then a little coloring additive to make it the color that looks like ketchup. So when it comes to the Filipino barbecue style, they make a barbecue sauce basically with the ketchup. They use Sprite in their barbecue. There's just lots of different unique things. My husband's actually Filipino, so I learned some of the techniques from him. But it's fun to go to Filipino barbecue restaurants. But what I'm most excited about is I actually just went to a brand new barbecue restaurant this morning before our call because I wanted to check it out, and it's Dominican barbecue.
Dominican barbecue. Oh, I love it.
Dominican barbecue. And it was so delicious. So it's called Hog and Tradition, and it just opened up on Stephanie Street in Henderson where Skinny Fats used to be.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, right over there by the kind of the Goodwill. I can't remember the other cross street. I think maybe American Pacific. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, it's a barbecue restaurant. You can see they've got, the brisket and the ribs. I got so much food because I had to try it all to see what everything was like. The brisket was cooked beautifully. It had a nice smoke ring on it. It was very tender. But when I bit into it, the flavors were so exciting because they had these Dominican spices that I was just not expecting. So they cook with mesquite. So it has like that Texas style barbecue dry rub crust, but with these pops of chilies and cumin and other flavors that were just, again, made it really exciting and different.
Well, and I love that they're using mesquite because, of course, the mesquite is also native to southern Nevada, too.
Yes.
So, I love that a native ingredient is popping up there. In this case, in the flavor of its smoke, although locals know that the beans are edible, too, in mesquite. I mean, that kind of brings me to my last question. Do you think that Vegas has its own barbecue style?
I think what makes Vegas barbecue unique is the culture of Vegas. We are such a diverse community. We have immigrants from so many locations that is reflective in Vegas barbecue. So I think when people do ask me, what is Vegas barbecue? I think one, it's indulgent and simple, like I was talking about at Jessie Ray's. And then two, I think that there's just really a nice ethnic variety here in the Valley.
Christie, I learned so much. Thank you for this conversation. Now I actually feel really excited about barbecue here in Las Vegas.
Yay! Awesome. Yeah, no, I should also mention that there is a Nevada Barbecue Association that's headquartered in Vegas. So if you want to learn more about Nevada barbecue, you should consider going to the nvbbqa.org website, and you can join the club, you can learn to cook with the club, you can judge with the club, you can do all sorts of things. So if you're interested in Nevada barbecue, that's a good place to start.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christie.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Hey, all the places that Christie recommended are in our show notes. So you should send this episode to a friend. You should pick a place to start and just eat your way through Las Vegas barbecue. And while I'm at it, could you leave us a review and rate the show? And you should also subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care.